Yeah, from your perspective and experience, can you give us a practical example regarding a succeeding collaboration with parents?
I have many examples where we succeeded with parental involvement, but I want to give you one classic one where I've worked in a community that is still very nomadic. They keep cattle, and it's important for everybody in the family to participate in cattle rearing and so on. So the school was having school meetings, parental meetings, but they were doing these meetings at the school. And they reported to us that they have tried any day of the week to bring in parents, but they always had to cancel or postpone the meetings because the parents wouldn't come. So when they shared this with my team, which was a research team, we asked them, how about doing this meeting in the community, which is about 30 kilometers from the school? And also asking the parents what time would suit them for the meeting. The very first meeting that they did in the community, they had almost 100% attendance. Because firstly, the parents felt at home in the community, unless they really had, those that didn't attend were those that had responsibilities of going to find the lost cattle and so on. And then they also felt free to speak in their language, and they decided on the time of the meeting. And the school reported to us that it's the first time that they had this kind of attendance and this kind of involvement. So I think it's very important to first consult with the parents that you want to involve, and also to give them a say into the time and how the meeting should go. And in my country, parents are not only the biological parents of the learners. It can be community members, it can be an uncle, it can be older sibling, and so on. They are saying that if they had this kind of meetings at the school, they wouldn't even have a place where to host the parents. But in the community, everybody attended because you qualified to be a parent. That's my story.
From your perspective and experience, can you give us a practical example regarding a succeeding collaboration with parents?
Okay, I daily work with children with several kinds of disabilities and difficulties. I have to need some kind of succeeded example. It should be to build an educational network which as the school who can play a central role, and it can involve all kinds of actors that are around the child or the young people, such as teachers and family and therapists and doctors and whoever we need to have and to talk about that. Because when we talk about disabilities, it could be a really complicated situation. So you need to have a functional communication with all of these actors. And I truly believe that school can have a central role in that, because it could be, in my experience, it's easier to have this inside the school, in which family and therapists can go inside and have a moment to dedicate to this, to a particular child or a particular kind of problem.
And from your perspective and experience, can you give us a practical example regarding to a succeeding collaboration with parents?
Yes, like Cynthia, I have many examples, but one that I could share with you now would probably be of one of many Arabic families who came to Germany in 2015. So I've been accompanying these people from day one until present day, and I remember the first contact was really difficult because you had a lot of expectations, you had the language barrier that you needed to overcome, and there are a lot of cultural differences as well. And it was very difficult for me at first to establish a relationship because we had to work with translators, which I found very distracting because you never have the direct communication between two people, but it's always somebody in between, no matter how nice they may be. But we did start working on that. They started learning German, and I myself started learning Arabic from them. And that was a lovely experience because I would go there for coffee. I do that occasionally with parents. Because by visiting them at home, you get a different context, you get their background, you establish a different kind of relationship with each other. And for them, it was really nice to teach me Arabic because, of course, I made a fool of myself. And I speak Arabic not proficiently, but I get by today. But of course, it's still something that we can laugh about together. And in the Arabic culture, they were very apprehensive to speak German because in the Arabic culture, it is often customary to laugh at you if you make mistakes. And they found that if they made mistakes speaking German to me, I wouldn't laugh and I wouldn't judge. So that was sort of the foot in the door to establishing this relationship. And that relationship became really important in teaching them how to get by in the German system. How does it work? What are our values? What are our traditions? What are things that you need to, rules that you need to abide by? And that's not just about telling somebody you must do this and you must not do this, but for them to truly understand how it works, which is important for them to be successful. And that understanding took many, many years. I recall a lot of situations where they were very overwhelmed by the German paperwork. In Germany, I have the feeling, more than in any country in the world, you have a ton of paperwork, no matter what it's about. And then imagine being an Arabic person, not being able to read or write, and you feel vulnerable and you don't know what to do and you have to ask for help. And so I would help them and they would ask me, and I tried to establish some kind of system with them. So please don't put all your papers in a rubbish bag and stuff it somewhere in your cupboard, but take a binder, sort them in there by date. And that was something I remember. First they looked at me and they were really irritated what I was talking about. And then when I came the next visit, they were so proud, and they led me into their bedroom and they'd freed this little space in the cupboard. And in this little space was one binder and one hole puncher, and one stapler and a couple of pens. So it was their little office, and it was sort of the beginning of them actually developing a system. And today, I've known this specific family actually gave me this necklace that I'm wearing now, and that specific family is successful. They run a business of their own, and the mother is working voluntarily in an old people's home because that has always been her dream, to work with elderly people. And she helps me in the Arabic community now with the families who are coming over to Germany now and who need help understanding the system, which is a wonderful thing to sort of help these people network with each other, especially the women amongst each other, because no matter whether I speak Arabic or not, I can sit with these ladies and I can listen to their stories, but I will never be an Arabic mother who has walked in their shoes. So that to me is beautiful, and now sort of having invested that, we get to reap the benefits. We've become close friends during that time, and they have this need and the feeling that they want to give back to Germany and back to the community of Arabic people coming now. So I really like that.
What does collaboration with parents mean?
Well, collaboration is of high quality and value. It's a mutual process. It refers to partnerships to achieve a goal or a set of goals, and the most important goal is the success of the child. When you speak about parents and teacher collaboration, the most important thing is the success of the child in its development, in its life, and in its education.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the topic of inclusion, because I think it related very much together, and when you think about inclusion, it's not just about to think about how can we put students into a normal school or like that, students with disability, for example. No, I think it's more like a question of educational justice or injustice. And so I think it's very related, because we don't only have to think about the students, we also have to think about the parents and how to build, like it was said in this nice example, to build a community and to get in touch with each other and to make a dialogue. And I think this is the core of inclusion, to think about how we can get in connection to each other. And I also think it's important not to see what has to be done to include somebody. We have also analyzed some kinds of exclusion. We have to look what barriers are there, why are our parents not coming, what is there, what excludes them. Because when we think about school, it can be a very powerful system, and we always have to reflect what is there, what kind of structure is there, which excludes them, or what is our school culture really open to all? Is it really welcoming all kinds of parents? And our practices, are they really open to everybody? Yeah. And I think also I can add is that in an inclusive way, school is not just a building who stands there forever. So it's more like a thinking of a learning organization. And I think when a school would like to learn and be a learning organization, we have to add or include the parents as well. I think they have to take an active part in a participatory way.
What influence do the different family backgrounds have on the collaboration?
Yeah, I think it also relates very much to inclusion, because when we always discuss about how diverse students are, but I think it's not just the students who are really diverse, it's also the parents and their background, their experience, their biographical background. What do they think about school? What fears do they have? Do they really understand the system of school? What the teacher wants from them? Are they really understanding this? What's their way of thinking about their kids? Because when we want to reach the child, when we want to build up and learning and inclusive spaces for them, we have to think about also the life world and the experience of the parents, and they are really diverse. I think there are a lot of cultural and social differences between them. They can be different in kind of their religious experience or their sexual orientation or any kinds of experience with disability, I think. And I also think it's not just about parents, because it can be also very diverse. As we heard in this one example, it can be other family members, other members of the community, or it can be guardians. It's about who is responsible for the child, and I think it has to be some kind of inclusive community to integrate all these diverse backgrounds. But maybe we can focus on two of them, so we can talk about the social dimension.
Yeah, regarding to the social and cultural dimension, I think most of the research found out that even within the same school, and the unequal involvement of parents happens on all the levels. It varies from the social class, the culture backgrounds, and also the race, the ethnicity, and all the other socio culture and also political factors can lead to some third kind of the unequal of parent collaboration with the school. And for me, I think this kind of inequality or the conflict between each other to some extent reflects the differences of their power and status within the society. So because those parents who are from the unprivileged group or with a low income are more likely to engage in the institution process who are leaded by the dominant social group. And these groups possess some certain kind of the mainstream norm of society and also the frames of reference. And in this way, parents are more likely to have the gap with the institution, so they feel like they are apart from them rather than being the member of the school system. And if the school take all these dominant social norms for granted rather than critically reflect on that and then considering all the race and cultural differences, there's more likely to reinforce the gap between the family and the parents. And also like there is also one study shows that the parents with within the low-income community are more likely have the competing role with the teacher. So that means the teacher who are act as or specifically act as a profession people who are gave the very objective and dispassionate valuation of students' performance and development without the reference of their community and social backgrounds. So, but on the other time, their parents are more likely to view their children as a reflection of their own experience and culture backgrounds. So in this way, and also the children most likely to have the loyalty to their parents, and when they comes to the school, there is a difficult time for them to find the comfortable way to deal with both sides. And so I feel like this is very important aspect to consider it when we refer to the collaboration with parents.
Well, there are a lot of things that we have to think about collaboration. It is a mutual and dynamic progress, and a lot of things we have to think about them. Also, we have families with disabilities, and collaboration with parents is vital for these families, because you can find, because in special education we work as a team, specialists, parents, educators, children with disabilities. So we have to work with co-equal voluntary work, and we have to respect each other.
What are the main barriers to parent-teacher collaboration in inclusive education?
There are many barriers. The main barriers are from both parts, from teacher and from families, from parents. They may include broader social influences that influence the function of school and families, or maybe it is individualized outcomes such as problems from the person, from the family, from the teacher. The most common barriers from the family is that some parents feel stressed or neglected. They afraid to come to school because they had some previous negative experiences. Maybe they are hardworking and they can't come to the school or to communicate with parents. They're not ready to communicate with school. Maybe they have also some internal problems, such as health problems or some other economic, language differences, problems, everything. And maybe they have also language difference and they can't communicate and afraid to come to school. The common now barriers from schools, for example, are the policy of school. The schools are not ready to communicate with parents. Some teachers are not educated to work with parents. Also, the school policy or the schools are inflexibles. They have programs in flexibles. And maybe the staff or the teacher attitudes about parents, or they don't understand the needs, the problems maybe the family has. So we have to see all the barriers and to solve the most of them.
What are the core principles for effective school-family collaboration in inclusive settings?
Well, according to the literature, there are main 3 conditions for parents to feel the sense of involvement in their children's education. So first of all, they need to have the awareness that they have the significant influence and could do something with their children's education. And secondly, so the parents is also have the sense of they can efficiently help their children to achieve their success. And thirdly is that also the most importantly, I think within the teacher-parents collaboration area is that the parents should feel they are perceive some positive invitations and also the feeling of involvement within the school system. So I think regarding to these 3 main conditions and what the school or the community can do is to provide such circumstances and to build up the sense for which is very helpful to provide these 3 conditions. So I want to also refer to some specific way to efficiently contribute to this. And first of all, I think it's mostly are ignored within this area is that the student's perspective. So although it's about the collaboration with school and parents, but also students play a very important mediator role. So if they have the positive sense of parents' involvement, so they are more likely to contribute to this relationship. For example, sometimes, and there is a classmate, and they told, for example, Frank, okay, your parents is coming, and then Frank started to think about, oh, what I did wrong today, what's wrong with me? And then this kind of fears or this kind of negative feeling of their children could, in a way, like distribute the collaboration with the school and also the parents. And secondly is about the communication. Although this is over and over again repeated, the importance, but I also think it's still we need to talk about that because most likely both sides have the not correct but appropriate perspective to think about their children's education, but sometimes they're just because of lack of the change of information, and they are more likely lead to the misunderstanding of each other and to have the conflicts and the intention between, and that is something not very ideal and helpful, and also in a way that could even distribute to children's negative influence within the school. And also from the teacher's perspective, I think teachers should have the feeling of the ownership. For example, have some kind of decision or policy within the collaboration. They should let the teachers feel they do matter and they can really contribute to this area. And so the teacher can have the feeling they are the active actor with this very important aspects. But one of the negative aspects or example is that some teachers choose to use incentive to kind of encourage parents to involve. But at the same time, there is a conflict with their value belief because they feel like, okay, you are joining because of the incentive, you are not really care about your child and not really care what is happening in the school. So even though it could to some extent help a little bit, but at the same time, it brings the teacher with a negative perspective and also the conflicts of their value could not very helpful. So from my perspective, I think the incentive could not very efficiently contribute, but there are lots of other things we still can do. It's like, just as you all mentioned, the community is very important. When the school can build up such a school community partnership, so they can, for example, the healthcare, the school-based clinic, and to provide some support for the students with disability, and also all the other forms of the collaboration with the community could help a lot.
When you think and reflect about all you said, do we actually need collaboration?
Yes, I think we need collaboration, but in a very necessary way, with the equal involvement of parents with different kinds of backgrounds. And so both teachers and students and also parents should be reflective to their perception of what collaboration is. For example, if teachers think that, okay, collaboration is school-based parent involvement, and then this kind of involvement should be help students improve their learning capacity or help them to achieve their success by satisfying the schools and the teachers' needs. And then in this way, the inequality is reproductive, because not all the parents have the similar ability or capacity to provide those support to students' learning or their learning capacity within the school system. So, and also, like, if the teacher think in this way, they will assume that all the kinds of negative social model, like the low education achievement, the low income, and something like that, is very inevitable. It's reproductive, and they can't change or they can't reverse the situation. So I think here the logic is kind of tricky, because they believe the social reproduction theory, and then it leads to the unequal outcomes of education. So it's like a certain causal chain. So because they believe A and they don't think B is possible or necessary, and then it must happen A rather than B. So in this case, the reproduction process is ongoing and can't be really improved. And from the parents' perspective, so they think that the teachers are responsible in the school for their children's learning. And so you can say here the teachers are more like children focused and school school-centric collaboration perception, and on the other hand, parents are like feel, okay, this also children-focused, but how to say, the community-centric collaboration. So in this way, the power is like, there's always a gap in between, and the power never really balanced. So I think the one important point, as we mentioned before, is to build up such like a school community partnership. And this partnership means like we have the equal power, and also we have the equal access to the resource. And to achieve that, I think it's very important to separate the activities of the children. Like one part of them is within the school, is school-centric, and it's about the learning in the school. And another is about their healthy development, so it's less functional activities. And for the teachers, if they think they are professional within the school, and then they should be responsible for their learning and for their improve of their like grades or something. But parents can't really be involved in this part, because they are with different backgrounds, and they can't really equally to support the learning in the school. But for the healthy development activities, both teachers and the schools and the children and the community should be involved and cooperate together to provide a very friendly environment which is helpful for children's further development.